Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Now, who wouldn't want to play a game where you're running around escaping from a bunch of murderous space clowns equipped with laser guns and silly putty? Because that's the premise that illFonic wants to embrace, and I'm all here for it. The problem is there's kind of mixed results at the end of the day. illFonic has made something of a name for themselves as basically being the premier go-to studio for asymmetrical multiplayer PvP horror games. Kind of like a genre within a genre within a genre here. They were the ones behind the admittedly infamous Friday the 13th video game, or even worse, the Predator video game, and then a somewhat better, but still slightly clunky Ghostbusters adaptation. And now, here we are, looking at their fourth licensed IP game. They are admittedly consistent if nothing else. So as a new player, you might be reassured to see that on the main menu there's a tutorial section clearly listed because of course, who looking to learn the ins and outs of a new, unfamiliar game wouldn't find it reassuring to check out the tutorial mode, even if only for a few minutes? Better to practice by yourself instead of potentially dragging down your teammates with your total embarrassing inexperience, right? Yeah, no. Clicking on the tutorial option will not actually provide you with a tutorial experience. Instead, all you get are a few static images giving you an incredibly superficial look at the basic gameplay mechanics without any specific context. Now, for the record, I went to PAX East this year. I got to talk to the developers firsthand and play the game hands-on. The game was technically in an unfinished state at that point. We were playing on what was basically an internal build. I understood why then there wasn't a tutorial, and as I and everyone else were standing in line to play, the developers who were on hand did a great job explaining the basics of what we were supposed to do and in what order. The problem is, between then and now, I kind of forgot, and the game does not do anything to refreshen my memory. Now, I could forgive an Expo demo not having a tutorial because of course they want to keep the line moving, so you're never going to experience anything more than a single PvP match. I get it. All good. But between then and now, I'd sure as hell expect a paid game to have more than a few hastily uploaded PNG files for its tutorial system. I do not think that is an unreasonable expectation. But apparently, it is, for illFonic at least. Okay, now that I've beaten that dead horse enough for it to be considered a war crime by the Geneva Convention, let's swap over to the real gameplay, shall we? Now, because the game launched with a pretty tiny pool of concurrent players, and it's only trickled downward since, I've had to play almost exclusively via private matches, which is where we get to problem area number 2. Private matches are intended, I suppose, to be your main way of familiarizing new players with the core gameplay mechanics, as well as giving existing players a way to play privately with their friends. Since it seemed that this was the closest I was ever going to get to a functional tutorial, I figured full steam ahead, why not, and jumped into a match by myself. At first I thought I'd just be wandering around the map by myself, but then I quickly discovered that the developers actually did something right here. I know, I'm shocked, and I actually want to give them some credit here. The game does, surprisingly, support AI players. Technically. I was able to jump in as a clown and hunt down and subsequently beat the absolute ever-loving motherfucking shit out of these enemy AI players. We're past the 2-minute mark, right? Yeah, I can swear now. Cool. However, and this is a big however, there is no friendly AI support. No AI teammates. At least, not on the clown side. For whatever reason, you cannot start a custom game either by yourself or with friends if there is not at least one human player taking the role of the clown. You can absolutely have an entirely AI player team of survivors, but on the flip side, there is absolutely zero programming in place for an AI team of clowns. I have no idea why. This makes no sense whatsoever. Why allow players to practice as a clown, but not as a survivor? Why do one and not the other? I don't know. It's worth noting that the AI bots in the game are completely and utterly brain dead, and it's not like I walked into this with insanely high expectations or anything remotely close to that. It is not hard to make bots do what they're supposed to do, bare minimum. Valve has always been pretty good with its AI bots in source games like CSGO, Team Fortress 2, and Left 4 Dead 2. Hell, even one of the few things Turtle Rock Studios got right with Evolve, one of the biggest high-profile AAA flops of like the last decade, was its fairly decent AI bots. The rest of Evolve might have been broken past the point of all repair, but at least their bots were above average. Killer Klowns from Outer Space, though, The bots can't even do basic objectives by themselves. They will literally just casually walk across the map in oddly scripted straight lines, turning at sharp 90-degree angles, like a train following a track. This isn't even redeemably bad, as in bad enough for me to get mad at it because it could have been better. I legitimately just feel sad for the game. Were I one of the programmers here, I'd be ashamed to have Killer Klowns from Outer Space included in my resume. I'd swipe that shit faster than a Tinder date. Unrelated, and I'm not sure whether this is a pro or con move on the part of the developers, but you appear to get the exact same amount of XP whether you play online via matchmaking, or whether you play in offline lobbies. This, as you well imagine, is extremely strange, as nearly all other comparable games do not award XP for private play, or will only award a fraction of that amount compared to normal online play. So if you're looking for a ridiculously easy way to grind XP, killing AI bots for a few hours is the best way to go. I started playing this game a few days after launch at various points in the morning, afternoon, and evening, and even in its first week, the game is dead as hell. There is almost no one looking to play this game, no one. So if you're hoping to find yourself a game with a stable concurrent player count, just honestly walk yourself right back out that virtual door, because that sure as hell is not happening here, and it's not hard to figure out why. Like I said from the start, Killer Klowns was at the top of my list of booths that I absolutely had to check out. Now, it's not even worth remaining installed on my computer's external hard drive. And you might rightfully ask, why? You've got survivors, Killer Klowns with insanely cool abilities and finishers. What's not to like? Well, if truth be told, everything else. It's garbage. It's shit. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm not going to beat around the bush and say, oh, well, it has its merits, but also it's really, really garbage. No, it's just really, really garbage. I could see the elements of what could have been a good game, but that is not the end result given to the players. From the start of the round of each match, the goal of the survivors is to identify which escape routes they can utilize and find the corresponding tools. Every escape route requires one or more equipable items discovered by exploring the map and looting wherever you can. Each map has around half a dozen possible escape routes. Should survivors still fail to find a way out, a final limited time escape route will appear in the last 2 minutes of the match. If you manage to bungle that as well, then I don't really know what to tell you, because you absolutely deserve to die as a punishment for your flagrant ineptitude. Klowns have two alternate objectives. The first, of course, is to hunt down and eliminate whatever survivors you can find in the most humiliating way possible. Eliminating survivors is always a ton of fun. The game has some really great, silly, fun, fully animated cutscene fatalities, many of which are total callbacks to the original film for the maybe like two of you watching this video that maybe have seen the film. And you get to unlock a lot of cool customization stuff as you delve deeper into the progression systems at hand. Aside from toying with survivors, you can also scout the map to find these big pink ball sacks laying around the map and bring them to the nearest power generator. Each generator will take up anywhere from around 3 to 5 of these ball sacks to get fully charged. As the generators charge up, you unlock more clown powers that will give you far more options in terms of dealing with those ever-pesky survivors. It's worth noting that while a clown can get more powerful over time, clowns are only really good at taking down individual survivors one by one. You can absolutely get bullied to the point of impotency if the survivors team up on you. Even a 2-on-1 where 2 survivors are attacking with baseball bats or other items will force you to either back off or, well, die. Luckily, since you are the clown, you do respawn if you get eliminated by survivors, but it is quite a lengthy respawn rate, so the loss of even one clown will severely alter the game in the survivor's favor. Survivors can equip a variety of weapons, including melee weapons, throwable weapons, and even the occasional gun as well, although the latter are very few and far between on any of the maps. I'll give the game credit, it does a reasonably good job of empowering survivors while at the same time not making them exceptionally annoying to fight against as the killer. And yes, I'm very much looking at you here, Dead by Daylight. After playing around with AI solo for a bit, because I could not for the life of me find a good match, I bought a copy for one of my friends and we had a blast coming up with all sorts of ridiculous self-imposed challenges to complete during the match. At what point I think we even committed to a speed run to see how fast we can commit war crimes against the incompetent NPC survivors. The results were, well, pretty much what you'd expect. Also, at one point, we got bored and started playing toss back and forth in the air with one of the, giant hacky sack things. Nothing like two clowns playing toss the ball in the middle of an abandoned parking lot to tell you that you have really found your Eden. Performance-wise, the game ran buttery smooth. I tested it on both my NVIDIA 3060 laptop and my NVIDIA 2070 desktop, both at 1440p definition. And yes, to preempt any question, I probably could start putting these videos out at 1440p too, but that involved redoing my intro and outro, and I'm lazy, so I'm not in a big rush to do that anytime soon. I set pretty much all the graphical settings in this game to maximum and tested out performance with and without enabling VSync and other stabilizers. No issues whatsoever, probably because this game isn't all that visually intensive. The maps are nice enough, but nothing earth-shaking. And if I'm going to be nitpicky about it, character models, especially the faces, look like inhuman mannequins modeled after inbred Alabamans. They aren't quite the hilarious nightmare fuel that the Friday the 13th survivors were, but they're not all that much improved either. There are a lot of other points I could raise, but honestly, I don't think for today it's all that necessary. When I think of how best to describe my experience as a player, just honestly looking for a good time, the best analogy I can think of would be, you know how you go to a movie theater, it's a decent enough movie, you've had a decent enough time, you don't regret seeing it, but at the same time you can't for the life of you remember anything about the characters, the plot, anything at all. It just exists as an ever-fading recollection in the back of your head as you move on to the next best thing. That right there is Killer Klowns from Outer Space, the video game. It is that film. If you have a great time with it, more power to you, and if you absolutely, on the flip side, hate it with every fiber of your being, I get that too. For me though, I'm just a hollow shell. I feel nothing because at the end of the day, I don't feel like the game itself is either worth praise or hate, it just kind of exists. So if you're on the fence already, my best advice to you is stay there. And for anyone watching this video a year or two from now asking inevitably whether the game is worth it now because it's like 82% off on Steam, as part of the Steam 2026 summer sale or whatever, the answer should be obvious. Unless the developers really go all out in showing the community that this isn't yet another one of their pump and dump game releases, I don't see why you should buy it or anyone else, if they haven't already. That said, as always, I leave the final decision up to you. If you enjoyed this review, you know how you can support my channel. I'm not going to do the whole thing. Every YouTuber does the whole like, subscribe, and comment. But unlike most of those people, I do actually respond to most comments posted on my channel, so if you have something you're bursting to say or a question you want to ask, feel free to comment down below and I will respond as soon as I can. In the meantime though, this is Warrior Dan signing out. Stay awesome and peace out. I just hit one of your gremlins in the face.
Not my monkeys.
I hit your monkey! I'll do it again.
How could you?
I don't know why you call them monkeys, they don't look like monkeys.
What do you mean they look exactly like monkeys?
How? What monkeys have you been around?
Monkeys.
Those are not monkeys. Those are gremlins.
They're space monkeys.
Oh my god.